actually start with a little task for you. So imagine that we're not actually in this beautiful zoo, but we're actually in a restaurant, and I am your waiter. So good evening, everyone. I'm your waiter, I'm Jonathan. Welcome. And what I want to do is I want to ask you which of the two dishes I'm about to describe to you, which of them sounds tastier. Okay, so the first or the second dish. The first dish you can choose from is the low-fat boiled sweet potato curry. And the second dish I have for you is the sweet and spicy coconut stew with slow-cooked sweet potato. Okay, so of those two dishes, who thought the first was the most tasty, would be the most tasty? So the low-fat boiled sweet potato curry, please raise your hands. And who thought the second one, the sweet and spicy coconut stew with slow-cooked sweet potato, thank you, would be tastier? And it's probably no surprise to you that actually those two dishes are exactly the same. And it's just the fact that by describing them, making a few tweaks to the language, changes our perception of what is tasty. And it's just quite phenomenal, the difference that happened in the room there. And I guess the question around that is why. And coming back to Ella's point around neural pathways we started with, was with regard food research has shown that when we consume food, or when we think about consuming food, before we consume food, we construct what are called simulations. We construct simulations of how that dish might taste and the experience of eating it. And so cues, such as language, can be vital in constructing those simulations because they bring forth previous memories and associations to construct that simulation. So, for example, if I were to say to you apple pie and custard, it might be that you would sort of imagine eating the sweet and sticky apples, the slightly dry pastry, and the delicious gloopy custard. And so in what you're doing there is you're constructing the simulation, the experience of what it would be like to eat that. And so what's really, and this is what I'm going to talk about, so I think there's a symmetry between this idea of simulations, which is kind of academically validated with what Ella's talking about with regard the neural pathways. So it's not just the ingredients that we've just been playing with that help define the simulations, but also concepts. So, for example, the word healthy. So there were two studies done, two academic studies. The one on the left refers to a study that was done in the States. Two groups of people given the same mango lassi drink, the same mango smoothie. One of the mango smoothies that the group C was labelled unhealthy. The other, exactly the same mango lassi for the other group, was labelled healthy. The group that drank the mango lassi labelled healthy regarded it as 55% less enjoyable than the one that was labelled as unhealthy. Similarly, another study, academic study, identical calorie count, identical cookies, labelled unhealthy and healthy again. Those that ate the labelled cookies labelled healthy regarded those as 39% less filling than those who ate the unhealthy one. So, I mean, these are like double-digit figures based on the difference between two letters, unhealthy, the U and the N, that has a dramatic influence on our perception of what the food tastes like. What this idea around health has been carried through by one of our partners. I'll come and talk a bit about who we are later, but this is done by Stanford. And what they did is to explore the different frames, different types of language, which will drive people to choose different types of food. So this is a study they did in the canteens at Stanford University last year. And they picked out a series of side dishes, vegetarian side dishes, vegetable side dishes. So beets, corn, green beans, sweet potatoes, etc. And they served them and they named them different things. So the basic naming, just zucchini. They labelled them indulgently, so slow roasted caramelised zucchini bites. They labelled them healthy restrictive, so sort of you get less of something, in order to be healthy. So in this instance, lighter choice zucchini, or healthy positive, you get a health benefit. So nutritious green zucchini. And they labelled them on different days, and they looked to see how many students took the dishes when they had the different labels. And what you saw, that when it had the indulgent label, you had a 25% increase in the amount taken compared to the next nearest one, which was simply the basic. And what's so fascinating, because Jackie, who did this research, who's a health professional, works in health and nutrition, like the healthy restrictive, so low calorie, low sodium, scored 41% less in terms of dish taken compared to indulgent. So the idea is naming something healthy reduces, in comparison to indulgent, or even just calling it carrots, the amount of dish taken, which is like quite phenomenal. And this is some research that we did, so it's not only healthy, but also the kind of the concept of vegetarian we also looked at. So this is some work that we did with LSE. So here we have this is an online study, UK nationally representative sample, control menu. So people online choose which is the dish that you would have if you would order if you were in a restaurant. You have two vegetarian options, the risotto at the top there, and the ricotta, spinach ravioli at the bottom in the control. And then over here, as with many menus around the country, you have the vegetarian dishes separated at the bottom. And what they found is that for those who were meat eaters, when they were presented with the vegetarian menu rather than the control, it reduced ordering of those vegetarian options by 56%. So placement and naming it vegetarian reduces uptake of plant-based dishes by meat eaters. So back to collaboration and who I work for. Part of the time is the Better Buying Lab, which is part of the World Resources Institute, which, if you don't know, is quite a large environmental think tank based out of Washington, DC. And the Better Buying Lab is about bringing together kind of commercial, mainly commercial food organisations, so food service organisations, retailers and manufacturers. And these guys serve around about, I think it's like 500 million meals a year around the world. And it's about how can we collaborate together in order to kind of generate solutions that shift people from eating meat into plant-based. And next chart is because, so why plant-based? If you work in food, you'll be aware of this. So this is some modelling data done by WRI, and this is the greenhouse gas impact of various foods that we would eat. And basically beef, lamb and goat, so the ruminants, the greenhouse gas contribution is far, far outweighing any other food that you might eat. And so the objective for us is to help consumers move from diets with high consumption of meat, especially the ruminants, towards those that contain proportionally more plants, either as plant-based, so all plant, or plant-forward, where you have like a little bit of meat as a garnish. So imagine like a stir-fry, beef stir-fry, but with or chicken stir-fry with a little bit of chicken rather than a lot of chicken. And what's important in that objective, which we're really clear on, is we are not trying to convince people to become vegan or vegetarian. Okay, that's not our objective. It's to shift people to diets that contain proportionally more plants of what they consume. And so what we've done, because WRI is very focused on research, their philosophy is count it, change it, scale it, we've done a whole bunch of research, academic kind of quality research, to help look at what language is powerful in getting people who currently eat meat to encourage them to eat more plant-based food. So the LSE study I talked about, we've done some work with the Behavioural Insights team, so the Nudge Unit, Yale, and a few field trials. And what we can see is that we've been looking at a number of different dishes, and lots of different names for those dishes. Now Ella wants me to talk about process, I'll come and talk about that in a moment. Lots of people we've spoken to in the last 18 months. And again, the thing that we're looking at here is we're looking at nationally representative samples. So how do we shift mainstream audiences towards eating more plant-based foods? And the process that we employed, which is this. So we would first up kind of do a workshop to generate naming alternatives. We would then do some kind of we'd do an online quantitative study, and then we'll do a field trial with some members. So if I just take you through one of the studies. So this is the UK study we did with the Behavioural Insights unit. So across the members that I mentioned, they put in some dishes. So these are the dishes that we had that we generated a whole bunch of names for. So these are kind of classic kind of plant-based dishes that you would appear on kind of menus. So meat-free breakfast, meat-free sausage and mash, chickpea and potato curry, gnocchi with mushroom, fresh spinach, a veggie burger and a black bean burger. We then did the workshop and then generated a whole bunch of names. So if we look at the gnocchi dish, these are the names, so the different frames that may be attractive to be able to describe that dish. And so you can see that the plain name at the top, is it good to talk about the experience of eating, to create a simulation in the name of what it's like to eat really melt in the mouth pasta? Is it good to evoke simulation around provenance, so evoking essentially Italianness, gnocchi rustica or spinach de funghi? Or is it about the boldness of the flavour, the punchy parmesan? Is it about the experience about being indulgent? Is it about a person? So mama's hearty homecoming gnocchi? or is it about the artisanal nature of making it, so the hand roll? So again, looking at different frames through which you can describe the dish to evoke a different simulation that may be more attractive to mainstream audiences to choose that dish. That's the process. So what we did with the research, we then asked people 2 phases of research. First one, imagine you're going for dinner with a good friend, how likely would you be to order the following dish? And then testing the alternative names. So we started with those, I think that was 8 names, long list. And then we got it in the menu where the alternatives were meat dishes. So again, choose from this alleged menu with a price point which of the dishes that you would have chosen. Again, we are rotating this name with the best results from this test, so phase 1 into phase 2, and seeing whether the name that we choose increases the proportion of people who would order it in comparison to the meat alternative. Yeah? And so what I'm going to show you now is just, if the next chart, is when we did the field trial. So I'm just going to switch to a field trial to make this real. So one of the dishes I showed you was the meat-free breakfast. And so what we did is with one of the UK supermarkets, we changed the name, and one of the alternative names was the feel-good fryer. So again, kind of like, you know, feeling a kind of a good version of a fryer. And so this is where we basically put a sticker over the existing name in a randomized control trial in 10 of stores, and saw whether or not that exhibited an uplift in sales when you simply replace the sticker over the name. And so what we found is with the meat-free breakfast, the feel-good fryer didn't yield a result in terms of a statistically valid uplift, but when we changed it to the garden breakfast, we saw an uplift of 12% in sales, just changing the name. When we changed the name to the field-grown breakfast, again, sales went up 17%. So this frame in this instance, is there something around nature and referring to like a more natural element, and certainly not meat-free? Is that going to be something that's more attractive? The next chart, meat-free sausage and mash, same study, looking at the afternoon evening menu. So changing it from meat-free to field-grown sausages and mash, uplift of 51% in sales. Changing it to Cumberland spice, so the simulation of flavour, veggie sausage and mash, up by 76%. So again, changing the name doesn't just change the perceptions, it changes sales, which is quite powerful from a business point of view if you're trying to shift people to eat more plant-based food. And so this is what we're going to be publishing in November at the Rethink Conference, the Culinary Institute of America. And this is our guidance that we're saying that if you are trying to appeal to mainstream audiences and encouraging them to eat more plant-based food at an individual dish level, then we are saying that the suppressing language that you should remove is vegan, meat-free, healthy restrictive, and vegetarian. There's some nuance on that we can talk about on the table. And we would suggest that you would be using instead enhancing language. So this is the language that we've seen the uplift in sales. And we're saying that what you should do is you should interrogate the qualities of the dish that make it delicious and flavoursome, and understanding what simulations, when you talk about that, would be evocative for your audience, and we're understanding that highlighting the provenance, highlighting the flavour, and highlighting the eating experience are the names, the origin or the roots of the names that will be enhancing of sales and appeal rather than that suppresses. And then final chart, so this is us running a workshop to generate enhancing names at Nat Geo headquarters in Washington DC. So this is the chef who makes all the foods, and this is us generating a whole bunch of names. So we've got a process that we're going to be rolling out. We just rolled out globally with Google to generate enhancing language. So anyone who wants to talk to me about that, I'd be delighted to talk more. But that's our work at BBM. Thank you.